I was thinking the other day about how we usually react when we're just staring down a completely chaotic situation.
Oh, yeah. Like when everything is just on fire.
Exactly. Let's say you have a highly toxic culture on your team at work, or maybe you, the person listening right now, are just going through a really overwhelming, messy period in your personal life.
Right.
Our very first instinct is almost always to reach for, like, the corporate or emotional equivalent of duct tape.
Mm.
I mean, for me, years ago, I had a team that was completely burning out and just snapping at each other constantly.
Oh, wow. That's always rough.
Yeah, it was bad. And my brilliant solution was to buy them a ping pong table and throw a Friday pizza party.
Of course, the classic pizza party fix.
Right. I essentially tried to fix a structural collapse with pepperoni, which, spoiler alert, did not work.
It is such a human reaction, though. I mean, we feel the anxiety of the chaos, so we reach for a quick, visible fix just to soothe the immediate symptom.
Yeah, we just want the pain to stop.
Exactly. So we introduce like a new productivity app or a strict new HR policy, or we just speak a little louder in the room, hoping to somehow force everyone back into line.
But the underlying structure is still totally broken.
Precisely. It's like realizing your car is aggressively veering into oncoming traffic because the axle alignment is completely shot.
Oh, man.
And deciding the solution is just to grip the steering wheel a lot harder. I mean, it might keep you out of the ditch for a mile or two, but the catastrophic friction is still there.
You're just delaying the inevitable.
Right. Eventually, you're going to crash.
And that is exactly why today's deep dive is so fascinating. Today we are looking at a stack of historical notes, sociological perspectives, and theological analyses, all centered around one specific ancient text.
Isaiah chapter 11.
Yes, Isaiah 11. Now, whether you look at this as ancient poetry or, sacred scripture, our mission today is to treat it as a literal structural blueprint for fixing chaos.
Yeah, taking it out of the theoretical.
Right. We want to extract the psychology and the architecture of this text and translate it into a highly practical guide for your leadership, your decision-making, and honestly, your sanity.
Because what this text actually does is completely deconstruct everything we think we know about how to build a stable environment.
It really does.
It forces us to look past the symptoms and examine what real substantive leadership actually looks like and what happens to an ecosystem when it is finally built the right way.
Okay, let's unpack this because we really have to start with the very first visual anchor the text gives us.
The origin story.
Yeah. The chapter opens by saying, "There shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots." Before we talk about leadership, we have to talk about the origin of this leader.
And to really grasp the weight of that imagery, you have to picture a massive ancient tree that has been violently decimated.
Just completely destroyed.
Yeah, it's been chopped all the way down to the ground. To anyone walking by, it's just a stump. The canopy is gone, the shade is gone, the fruit is gone.
It looks entirely dead.
Exactly. But from those surviving unseen roots, a tiny new shoot like a branch suddenly sprouts.
See, and our modern reaction to seeing a stump in our own lives, maybe it's a startup that completely failed or getting passed over for a massive promotion or a deeply broken relationship.
You just write it off.
Right? We say, well, that's a dead end, time to walk away. But this text presents the stump not as a graveyard, but as an origin story. It actually makes me think of an analogy.
Oh, let's hear it.
Well, if you're walking down a city street and you see a collapsed, ruined building with debris everywhere, it's a disaster, right?
Oh, totally. A total mess.
But if you walk by a week later and see a completely cleared, excavated hole in the ground, dug all the way down to the bedrock.
I see where you're going.
You don't think disaster anymore. You think, oh, they're laying a foundation. They're getting ready to build a much stronger skyscraper.
That's a great way to look at it.
So how should this shift the way you, the person listening right now, view your own personal or professional dead ends?
Well, it requires a complete paradigm shift, really, from finality to potential. We are so incredibly quick to just write off situations the moment the visible success disappears.
We just mourn the tree that got chopped down.
Exactly. But the core principle here is that profound growth often requires the ground to be cleared first. Setbacks do not end your potential. They reset it.
Wow. They reset it.
Yeah, the roots are what matter. Strong outcomes frequently come from the absolute most unlikely, unimpressive beginnings.
So wait, let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around this.
Mm-hmm.
If new growth is emerging from this cleared foundation, from this stump, who is guiding that growth?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right, because a new shoot can just as easily grow crooked. What kind of leadership actually builds the new structure?
Well, the text is exceptionally specific about the mechanics of this leadership. It describes a leader guided by the Spirit of the Lord, possessing the spirit of wisdom, understanding, counsel, and might.
Okay, those all sound like great leadership traits.
They do, but the real crux, the part that challenges us today, is in what this leader does not do.
Wait, what do they not do?
The text explicitly says, "This leader shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears. Instead, they judge with righteousness and equity for the meek."
Which feels entirely backward to how we operate today. I mean, we
Right.
are practically hardwired to judge by the sight of our eyes.
What's fascinating here is how directly this ancient metric indicts our modern reactive culture. We live in this algorithmically driven world where looking capable is constantly confused with actually being capable.
Oh, 100%. It's all about optics.
Right. If you are managing a team, the sight of your eyes might be the employee who speaks the loudest in meetings or, an immediate drop in a quarterly metric.
And what about the hearing of your ears?
The hearing of your ears is the office gossip or the trending outrage on social media. We are trained to react instantly to surface-level optics.
We have to, right? Or we fall behind.
But this text argues that relying on those obvious sensory inputs almost always leads to structural failure. Depth outlasts image.
I hear that, but
Yeah.
I have to push back on this a little.
Sure, go ahead.
In today's fast-paced world, slowing down to look past the surface feels like professional suicide. If
Yeah.
I'm running a department that's just bleeding cash and I don't react quickly to what I'm seeing and hearing,
You feel like you're failing.
yeah, if I don't instantly fire the underperforming vendor or jump on the new industry trend, I'm going to get left behind. Doesn't this mandate for deep, slow integrity just make you too slow to survive?
I get that. It feels slow in the short term, but it's an investment in long-term structural integrity. Let's look at the mechanism of how this actually works.
Hey, buddy.
Quick reactions based on superficial appearances usually solve one immediate symptom, but create like 3 new invisible problems.
Oh, man,
Yeah.
I've done that.
Right. If you snapfire someone based on office hearsay, the hearing of your ears, without deep investigation, you might remove a minor annoyance, but you've just destroyed the psychological safety of the rest of your team.
Because now everyone is terrified they're next.
Exactly. You will spend the next 2 years fighting fires you accidentally started because you were trying to move fast.
That is so true.
When you slow down, diagnose with actual understanding, and act with equity, you build a system that doesn't constantly break down. You stop having to micromanage because the foundation is sound.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if you actually manage to build that foundation, the text shifts to show us what happens to the surrounding ecosystem.
The results of that leadership.
Yeah, and we get some of the most radical, famous imagery in all of literature.
Yes, the vision of the peaceable kingdom. The text paints a picture of natural enemies suddenly coexisting.
Like the wolf and the lamb.
Exactly. The wolf dwells with the lamb. The leopard lies down with the kid goat. The calf and the young lion are together. The cow and the bear feed side by side, and the lion eats straw like an ox.
And it specifically points out that a little child shall lead them. It says, a baby will play safely near the hole of an asp or a cockatrice.
Which are highly venomous snakes.
Right. Now, I have a toddler at home.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I barely trust him not to eat a handful of dirt in the backyard, let alone broker a peace treaty with an apex predator. On its face, this imagery is absolute absurdity.
It completely defies the laws of nature as we understand them. I mean, predators consume prey. That is the rule of the wild.
But if we apply this as a structural blueprint, it changes everything. Think about a highly toxic workplace.
Everyone's been in one of those.
Exactly. Every office has its wolves and its leopards. The aggressive, cutthroat people who ambush others, steal credit, and just devour the weak to get ahead.
Sadly, yes.
Our normal instinct is to either fight them, try to put them in corporate cages with strict rules, or become a lion ourselves just to survive the room.
But this text suggests an entirely different mechanism.
Yes.
It suggests that if the environment is structurally sound, if the leadership is operating on equity, transparency, and deep wisdom, it completely neutralizes the predators.
That is wild.
Neutralizes them.
That is the crucial insight. We need to look at how a predator is neutralized here. In a toxic, opaque environment, a corporate wolf thrives because they can use whispering campaigns and backroom leverage.
They operate in the shadows.
Right. But if a leader makes decisions in the open, based purely on equity and substance, the wolf suddenly has no shadows to hide in.
Oh, wow.
Their manipulative tactics lose all their power. The sunlight of transparency neutralizes their fangs.
So the very nature of the environment changes so fundamentally that someone innocent and vulnerable, represented by the child, can safely operate in a room full of carnivores. Yes, and this raises an important question about how we view the conflict in our own lives. We often operate under the assumption that conflict is just inevitable.
Like it's just human nature to fight.
Exactly. We think it's just human nature to tear each other apart, so we exhaust ourselves trying to manage the fighting. But Isaiah 11 teaches us that much of the conflict we experience isn't an unsolvable human condition.
What is it then?
It's a structural failure. When systems are equitable and people know they will be judged fairly and protected, the scarcity mindset vanishes. The wolf doesn't need to eat the lamb if the structure provides enough for everyone.
Alignment reduces friction.
Exactly. Fix the underlying structure and the symptoms of chaos naturally fade.
So let's say you do it. You go from a dead stump to a flourishing branch. You mandate that decisions will be made on substance rather than sight, and you structurally eliminate the chaos so the wolves and lambs can sit in the same break room.
A peaceful break room for once.
Right. The text tells us that this environment doesn't just quietly exist in a vacuum. It actually becomes a beacon.
The narrative scope massively widens here. It says the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord, and that this root of Jesse will stand as an ensign.
And an ensign is like a banner, right?
Yeah, an ensign is a banner or a flag raised high on a hill for an army or a scattered people to see. It says the Gentiles will seek it out, and the Lord will set his hand a second time to recover the remnant of his people from the four corners of the earth.
From places like Assyria, Egypt, Cush, and the islands of the sea.
Right, which were vast, geographically distant, and historically hostile territories. It's talking about gathering people who have been completely dispersed by war and failure.
But there's a specific relationship mentioned here that I want you to explain. Because the text says Ephraim and Judah will no longer envy or vex each other. For someone who doesn't know ancient Middle Eastern history, why is that a big deal?
It is a massive deal, and it proves the point about structural healing. Ephraim and Judah weren't just two political parties that occasionally disagreed.
They were enemies.
Worse. After King Solomon, the entire nation literally tore itself in half. You had Israel in the north, primarily represented by the tribe of Ephraim, and Judah in the south.
Oh, wow.
For centuries, they engaged in brutal civil wars, betrayals, and forged alliances with foreign empires to destroy each other. There was deep, bloody generational trauma between them.
So not just a mild disagreement.
Not at all. The text specifically notes two verbs. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. Envy is the internal bitterness of wanting what the other has.
And vexing.
The vexing is the outward action of harassing or oppressing the other.
So it's tackling both the internal resentment and the external toxicity.
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it tells us three vital things about how we restore the broken parts of our own lives and communities.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, clarity is the ultimate cure for resentment. When the earth is full of knowledge, when people are finally given the truth and a fair structure, generations of bad blood can actually dissolve.
That's powerful.
Second, what is built right naturally attracts others. You don't have to market a healthy culture. Building substance over hype creates its own magnetic pull. People naturally migrate toward what feels solid and safe.
And the third thing is about the effort required, right?
Yeah.
Because the text doesn't just say they lazily wander back.
Right.
It describes this incredibly dramatic scene where the Lord smites the Egyptian sea into 7 streams to make a dry-shod highway so people can walk across safely.
Which tells us that broken systems absolutely can be rebuilt, but restoration is not a passive event. Drying up a sea to create a safe highway is an act of extreme intentional engineering.
You can't just wait for it to happen.
No, we can't just sit around in the wreckage of a failed project or a broken family and hope the pieces magically glue themselves back together. True restoration requires someone to raise the banner, set the new standard, and do the heavy lifting of gathering the dispersed pieces.
So what does this all mean for us today? We've looked at the ancient imagery, we've analyzed the psychology of the stump, the danger of leading by sight, and the mechanics of neutralizing the wolves in our workplaces.
We've covered a lot.
We really have. But there is a much deeper, more profound layer here that we need to address. If this text is a blueprint for leadership, it is ultimately a reflection of the architect who designed it.
Absolutely.
Let's look at what this means for your own spiritual trust, and your relationship with God.
This is where the structural becomes intensely personal. The leader described in Isaiah 11, the one operating with the spirit of wisdom, understanding, and a fierce, uncompromising protection of the meek, is a direct, unvarnished look at God's own character.
And if God's model of leadership is the exact opposite of the loud, reactive, ego-driven behavior we see from leaders in our daily lives, it fundamentally changes how we interact with him.
It has to.
Think about it. Our world is saturated with leaders who judge by what they see, who make snap decisions based on optics, and who routinely let the vulnerable get eaten by the wolves just to protect the bottom line.
It's toxic.
It is. And if we project that kind of leadership onto God, our relationship with him is naturally going to be rooted in deep anxiety.
Oh.
We will constantly be terrified of making a mistake, of getting fired from grace, or of being crushed because we didn't look perfect.
But when you actually read the blueprint, that fear dissolves. You see that his fundamental nature isn't reactive. It is grounded in immense, patient understanding.
Which is such a relief.
Right. He actively desires to protect the meek and judge with perfect structural fairness.
It totally flips the script on how we handle our failures.
Yeah.
If he is the kind of architect who can look at a completely decimated stump like a situation in your life that everyone else has walked away from and called a failure.
And he says, no, I can cultivate a flourishing branch from those deep roots.
Exactly. Then we can implicitly trust him with our own dead ends. The mistakes, the lost years, the times we've been cut all the way down to the ground. He does not view your stump as a finality. He views it as a cleared foundation.
And returning to that imagery of the highway through the sea, in a world of massive information overload, where everything feels chaotic and unpredictable, knowing that God operates with that level of intentionality gives us an unshakable foundation.
He engineers a way through.
He literally engineers dry highways through chaotic seas just to gather outcasts who feel lost. It tells us that his intervention in our lives isn't some random happy accident. It is highly intentional, deeply considered, and profoundly loving.
Better awareness of his true nature leads to a much stronger, much more trusting relationship. Think of the relief in that for you. You do not have to constantly perform.
No more duct tape.
Exactly. You don't have to keep up a flawless image for a God who deliberately ignores surface-level optics to examine the actual substance of your heart.
It entirely removes the pressure of our modern image-obsessed culture. You can rest in the knowledge that his structural alignment is perfect, even when the daily environment around you feels like it's spinning out of control.
So to bring this all together and remind you of the ground we've covered, we started by looking at the unlikely beginnings of a cut stump, realizing that setbacks reset our potential rather than end it.
Right.
We explored the difficult mandate to make decisions based on deep understanding rather than surface-level sight or quick, reactive impulses.
We analyzed the mechanics of how an equitable, structurally sound environment naturally neutralizes toxic predators and ends historical conflicts.
Proving that chaos is usually a symptom of poor architecture.
Exactly. And we saw how that kind of stability acts as a banner, a magnetic pull that attracts others and intentionally gathers up the broken, scattered pieces of our lives into something solid.
It's a radically different way of living and leading. It shows us how entirely different life feels when it's finally built the right way. Not with the duct tape and the panic quick fixes of the modern world, but from a deeply rooted foundation of wisdom.
It means we can finally stop trying to just paint over the crumbling walls of our lives and begin the real work of restoring the foundation.
Exactly. So we leave you with a final thought to mull over as you navigate the complex, maybe chaotic environments of your own life this week. Look around at the things that are breaking down. Think about where you are desperately applying duct tape when you should be looking at the structure. How will you apply this information in your life?